Sure is a lovely day for the parade, Chris. I'm glad you suggested we come down and watch.
Ah, yes, a beautiful way to begin the season.
Do you want to sit down somewhere and watch this long parade?
I don't mind standing, or maybe I'll go stand next to those children.
Best place to watch from. It ain't a New York Christmas without a Macy's parade, and the children love it.
I saw a six-pack in the dumpster on the corner of 32nd Street. You might want to go pick that up.
Oh, thank you. I'll get it after the parade.
My dear woman, why do you fish in garbage cans? It's repulsive.
Because I find wonderful things in them. I could get money for this bottle. Every little bit counts. Plus, I'm doing my Christmas shopping.
Christmas shopping.
You'd be surprised to see what treasures people throw away.
You see, I do my shopping in the privacy of my living room, the Home Shopping Club on Channel 8. I just telephone my number and use my credit card. I can't be bothered plowing through these crowds in the stores.
Well, you ought to be bothered a little. Besides, my shopping costs a lot less than yours and is appreciated just as much. It's the time and thought you put into it. That's how you show your love for your family. Whatever way you do your shopping.
I like your spirit. The real Christmas spirit is always a joy.
Well, you know, Christmas is always big bucks for the department stores. It's the season they have to make up for their losses, basically all year long.
Christmas is more than the big bucks, Doctor. Christmas is the one time a year that's dedicated to things that we don't pay attention to the rest of the year. Peace, goodwill, and helping others. Now, what would you like for Christmas, Doctor?
I don't even think Santa can get me what I want.
Try me.
Okay, if you say so. Maplewood's medical facility needs a new x-ray machine. It could be useful in so many situations, but it's very expensive.
You shall have it, Doctor.
Chris, if I get that x-ray machine, I'll know you're Santa Claus.
Just look in your stocking on Christmas morning.
We've never really discussed you having to leave Maplewood. I want you to know how sorry I am. I did everything I could, but the board overruled me. They just wouldn't let anyone stay whom they've declared is mentally unsound.
But I passed all those tests, didn't I?
I know you did, but the board just can't justify anyone who has paranoid thinking to use the psychiatric jargon.
Because I'm Santa Claus.
Because you say you're Santa Claus.
But it happens to be true.
But the board doesn't believe in Santa, so you're out.
So, what happens next?
Maplewood has made an arrangement with the Mount Hope Sanitarium.
The rubber room.
Mount Hope is a very charming and comfortable place. There's entertainment, TV, and... Chris, do you have any money?
Sure. I've got $53.
That won't get you very far. You're not a young man anymore. If you can't make a living for yourself, you'll end up living on the street. Why not avoid the disagreeable experience?
But there's nothing wrong with me. I'll be hanged if I have to go to the funny farm.
What other choice do you have?
The Central Park zookeeper's a friend of mine. Maybe I'll stay with him. The reindeer don't doubt my sanity.
Chris, please.
Well, Doris, after 5 years, I think we've got this parade business working pretty well, don't you think?
Just as long as Miss Macy's happy.
I think the Popeye photo's better this year, Mother.
Yes, Susan, we fixed his eyes so they roll, which makes him look more alive.
You keep watching your mother, Susan. You'll be able to handle this parade by yourself by the time you're 10.
Would you believe 8?
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas.
Allow me, sir.
Yes.
Here, allow me. You see, it's all in the wrist.
Never works unless you oil it just a little.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself, but in front of these children, you're a disgrace to the uniform, and where's your Christmas spirit?
Here, have it right here. Gotta keep warm.
Oh, there's our Santa right over there, Doris. Oh my God. Well, what do we do now?
How did we manage to get him? Shelley, see if you can get him in the sleigh.
How?
I don't know. Shove, tie him in if you have to.
I think I'm going to be sleigh sick.
Mother, I don't think that people are gonna like a Santa who's asleep.
He's not his twinkling self, that's for sure.
Santa, please wake up.
That's not really Santa. He works from over there at Macy's. If you want to see a Santa, they ring bells on every street corner in the city.
Those aren't real Santas.
We want to see Santa himself! I suppose you believe in the Easter Bunny, too?
This looks like a golden opportunity. It looks like they need a replacement on the sleigh, and you could spread Christmas spirit and pay rent at the same time.
But they haven't asked me.
You have to ask them. How can you sit and watch this? These children would be disappointed if there's no Santa.
Doctor, is that real Christmas spirit I hear, or are you just pretending for my sake?
No, I've been thinking about what you said. Giving and sharing. Whether or not you are the real Santa, you can certainly make these children believe that you are.
That's what the holiday season is all about, isn't it, Doctor? Excuse me, is there anything I can do to help?
I don't believe it. It's Santa Claus.
My pleasure, ma'am.
Shelley, it's a gift from, of course, from Santa Claus. Sir, you can see our problem here. Would you fill in and play Santa Claus in this year's parade?
Well, I'm not in the habit of filling in for intoxicated imposters. But since the role fits me so perfectly, which way to the dressing room?
Shelley, get this man suited for the sleigh.
You bet. Right this way, sir. And I'll take care of this.
All right, on my count. 1, 2, 3.
Hello, Doris.
Oh, hi, Fred. Susan's over talking to the elves. Could you go get her and take her somewhere? There's so much going on right now, and I don't have time to deal with the crazy ideas they'll put in her head.
Don't worry, I overheard the conversation. It was just about the North Pole.
That's just what I mean. North Pole. North Pole! Mr. Gailey, I appreciate you taking care of Susan, and I'm so glad you two get along so nicely, but you and I have been neighbors long enough for you to know that I have definite ideas about keeping her mind free of illusions. Will not have her believing in fairy tales, Mr. Gailey.
Why not, Miss Walker?
All right, Fred. Sorry for being so irritable, but I feel it's more important for her to understand reality. As a lawyer, I think you'd support that.
I didn't know you were raising a 7-year-old lawyer.
This isn't a fairy tale world we live in, Fred. She'll grow up expecting that Prince Charming will come around and he'll, well, you know that happily ever afters just don't exist.
Are we talking about Susan or about you? Look, Doris, I'm sorry. I'm sure your divorce was very painful, but you can't stay bitter about it forever. Not every man will let a woman down, and I don't think Susan's going to be any happier growing up to think so.
I was devastated, Fred. Thank you for everything, but please let me be Susan's parent.
Hey, Mom. The elves are better this year. Their costumes actually fit.
Don't worry, Doris. Nobody will make up this kid's mind for her.
welcome aboard. I'm Miss Shellhammer. It's my responsibility to train the new members of the Macy's family of employees. Now, here's a list of the toys we want you to push this year, Mr.
Kris Kringle.
Oh, really? That's very clever.
It's been in the family for generations.
Okay. Now, we're overstocked on these toys this year. So, if a child wants something we don't have, you should say, no, you might not like that. How would you like a Mrs. Potato Head? Understand?
Why not give the children what they really want?
Because it's Christmas. People will do just about anything for the kids at Christmas. And you can change their minds because they think you're really Santa Claus. See, it's the perfect time to push our backlog merchandise.
Oh, the real economic spirit, huh?
Yes, and a Santa who pushes our overstock inventory gets a little something extra in his Christmas stocking. Now, we mustn't keep the shoppers, I mean the children, waiting.
So,
Brianna Pepper's sisters have Mike's 1013. What? I know. I tried to get someone to send them back here. Yeah, they're on 1013, but they were supposed to switch them.
hello, Sharon.
How did you know my name?
Because I'm Santa Claus. Now, what can I bring you for Christmas?
I want a pink bike with the ribbons on the handlebars.
Well, you've been a good girl. I think that can be arranged.
Oh, they didn't take Mike's. Macy doesn't have a Mike. I have Mike 5 back here. So should I just give Macy Mike 5?
What do you think? I'm made of money? Do you know how much a bike costs? $125, and I can't afford that.
Can you afford $55.95?
Well, sure.
Try Consumers Outlet on 30th Street.
Thanks, Santa. I just can't believe it. Macy's Santa sending me to another store?
It's not whether Macy's or Consumer sells the toy. It's to give the child what they really want.
Thank you, Santa. Here.
Now, what can I bring you for Christmas, young lady?
I want a fire engine, one that has real hoses and squirts real water. And I promise not to get it in the house.
That's what you said about the squirt gun last year.
I know, but I really promise this time.
All right. I accept your promise. But remember now,
Why did you tell her that? I've been looking everywhere and they're sold out all over town.
try Bloomingdale's. They just got in a new shipment. 4th floor, second aisle on the left. Only $18.50. A marvelous bargain.
Bloomingdale's, huh?
Oh, thank you for shopping at Macy's.
Oh, well, I'm actually on my way to Bloomingdale's. Your Santa actually recommended it.
He what?
Yes, isn't that wonderful? That's the true spirit of Christmas. He showed me where I can get what my daughter really wants for Christmas this year.
No. What'll Mrs. Macy say about that?
And how are you today?
Mad.
Tell me about it.
Me and my sister got into a fight. She told me the phone would roll into my ear if I didn't get off of it.
Kids like to tease each other, don't they? But remember, the next time someone's mean to you, it means that person is unhappy inside. Now, what can I bring you for Christmas?
A telephone.
Ho, ho, ho! I can see things are getting better right away.
Okay, Susan, it's your turn.
Do I have to?
Try it anyway, for the sake of Macy's.
You know, of course, that this is ridiculous.
And why don't you believe in Santa Claus, Susan?
How did you know that?
Because I know lots of things. Now, what can I bring you for Christmas?
Nothing. Whatever I want, my mother will get for me, provided it isn't too expensive. Look, I know you're just a person my mother hired to play the part of Santa Claus, but I must admit, you're a little better than most. I can't even see the straps holding your beard on. It looks real.
That's because it is real, and I'm real too.
Well, it was nice talking to you anyway, but I don't think you ought to pretend to all these children that you are going to bring them what they want.
Maybe they will get what they want this year, and so will you.
I'm sorry. She can be a hard sell. Thanks for trying anyway.
It's all right, and thank you for bringing her to me. I enjoy working on the tough cases.
It's really sad to see so much cynicism in a little girl like Susan.
It is, but maybe what she needs is an infusion of imagination. Maybe that's something the two of us can do something about. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Mother, something funny happened. The Santa knew all the children's names.
Susan, the elves probably ask the parents what the children's names are before they go to talk to Santa. Besides, he's only a man I hired this morning, and even if he were Santa Claus, I don't think he'd be working at Macy's. Now, could you go stand over there for a second while I talk to Fred? Fred, would you step this way? Just received Santa's employment record from the department. Perhaps you'd like to take a look.
Name, Chris Kringle. Age, as young as my tongue and a little bit older than my teeth. Birthplace, the North Pole. Next of kin, Donner, Dasher, Prancer, Dancer, Comet, Blitzen.
Does that convince you? Perhaps it's best you take Susan home now if you don't mind. Apparently, I have a job to do.
I still just think he's a nice, jolly old man. Okay, I stand corrected. Come on, Susan. Your mother has Christmas to manage.
Doris, this new Santa is completely unacceptable. He refuses to push our backlog merchandise, and you are not going to believe this. He's sending our customers to buy toys at other stores. I am not kidding. You've got to do something about this.
What a coincidence! I was on my way to do just that. Mr. Kringle, we've had a busy day, haven't we? Was it difficult for you?
Getting accustomed to a new setting is always trying. But I have to admit, I have enjoyed the children.
Maybe you've been trying a little too hard.
What do you mean, Mrs. Walker?
It seems you haven't been following Miss Shellhammer's instructions.
You mean to push the surplus toys? Yeah, I decided not to do that.
Oh, you did?
I thought it was dishonest. Why should a child have to pay for Macy's mistakes?
That's not your decision to make, Mr. Kringle. And speaking of dishonesty, how do you explain this personnel form?
But it isn't dishonest.
But the things you put down on this form. We take our work here very seriously at Macy's, Mr. Kringle. If you want a paycheck, you have to put proper information down on your personnel form.
But it all happens to be true. See, I verified it by signing at the bottom.
So, you really think you're Santa Claus?
Of course not.
What a relief.
I know it for a fact.
Well, you are free to live with whatever delusions you choose to, but we cannot have a Santa who refers our customers to other stores.
I find it ironic, Mrs. Walker, that you're firing Santa Claus for being Santa Claus.
Macy's is in business, Mr. Kringle. We are competing with other stores. Oh, I do not want to argue. I'll authorize a week's severance pay to you, Mr. Kringle. Now, Merry Christmas and goodbye.
Merry Christmas to you, Mrs. Walker. And don't worry, I won't hold this against you on Christmas Eve.
Doris, Mrs. Macy would like to...
I am perfectly capable of speaking for myself, Miss Shellhammer.
Is everything all right, Miss Macy?
I will listen with great interest while you tell me who is responsible for our Santa sending customers to other stores.
I take complete responsibility, Miss Macy.
I instructed him to push the backlog merchandise, Mrs. Macy, but...
Well, then who told him to send customers to Bloomingdale's to get things we didn't have?
We don't know, ma'am.
My office has been flooded with phone calls, faxes, letters.
I'm really sorry, Miss Macy, but everything is being taken care of.
All messages of grateful appreciation from our shoppers. This is the greatest goodwill advertising gimmick in years. It's positively revolutionary. I can see the headline, "The store with the real Christmas spirit. Macy's Santa recommends Bloomingdale's." This is a breakthrough advertising initiative, Miss Walker. The media will love it, and Macy's will reap a harvest of publicity and goodwill.
I'm so glad you're pleased.
This is the best Santa we've ever had. And there'll be an extra bonus in both of your Christmas stockings this year, ladies.
This must not be Tuesday after all. I'm still asleep and dreaming.
It's Armageddon. I just fired him.
You did what?
You should see his personnel form. He's crazy. He really thinks he is Santa Claus.
Well, evidently, so does Mrs. Macy.
I don't know what we'll do now.
Do you think Mrs. Macy will fire us?
Maybe it's not too late. Sylvia, have the operator page Kris Kringle, will you?
Miss Walker, where is Santa? The line is stretching all the way to ladies' sportswear.
And we're almost out of candy canes.
She fired him.
She fired Santa Claus? In the middle of Christmas rush? What about the children?
Miss Walker, as the shop steward of Elves Local number 10, I must lodge a formal grievance against this capricious disrespect for the Christmas spirit.
All right, let's calm down here. Everything is being straightened out.
Santa goes, we walk.
Good grief, striking out. That's just what I needed.
There was no need to page me, Mrs. Walker. I was going to bring the suit back to you.
Put it back on.
Mr. Kringle, I owe you an apology. I'm afraid I was a bit hasty.
Oh,
You see, we didn't understand your policy of sending customers to other stores. As a matter of fact, Miss Macy likes it.
but that's not reason enough, Mrs. Walker. Why should I come back just to increase Macy's profits? We spend time trying to make things go faster and look shinier. Then we're losing what's coming from our hearts. And I don't think I can participate in that kind of commercialism.
So, you won't come back?
The union stands solidly behind you, Mr. Kringle.
Here we are in the middle of a Christmas rush, and I lose the man who's worked a miracle all because I didn't know how miracles worked. It really is more than a matter of profit, Mr. Kringle. Can't you see that Macy's needs you? The children need you. I need you. Please.
Well,
Not to mention saving 2 wage slaves from being fired.
Would you stay if we promise not to make you push our overstock? Just be yourself. Just be the Santa you're meant to be.
now that I can do.
A masterful stroke, Mrs. Walker.
You wanted to see me, Mrs. Walker? Yes, Mr. Sawyer. As our vocational guidance counselor, I was hoping you could help me out with a particular situation. You see, we have a wonderful Santa Claus in the toy department this year.
That's very admirable, Mrs. Walker.
Not exactly. You see, he's perfect in every way, even a natural white beard, but he's actually convinced he is Santa Claus.
Interesting.
I was hoping you could help the old fellow out a bit.
You mean he actually maintains his character outside of the work environment? Oh dear. Sounds to me like a classic case out of an abnormal psychology textbook. What other symptoms are there?
None that I know of.
A persistent delusion. Very bad, very. See, cases like this are often deeply rooted in a failure to have emotional needs fulfilled in childhood. So the subject tries to personify the image of affection and gift-giving. What's the subject's name?
Kris Kringle.
You've got to be kidding.
I wish I were, but please don't alarm him. He's a very valuable employee right now.
Well, what do you want me to do?
Just go up to him and have a casual conversation, maybe instruct an interview.
Don't worry, Mrs. Walker. He'll never suspect that I suspect.
Are you Doris Walker?
Yes, may I help you?
Dr. Pierce, the resident physician at Maplewood Home, the place where Kris Kringle used to live.
Really, I think I'd like to talk to you.
I'm so glad you decided to hire him as your Macy Santa. Glad you gave him a chance.
Who is he really, Dr. Pierce?
That's a good question. I've given it a lot of thought. He claims he's the real Kris Kringle. I mean, he certainly fits the part.
You don't actually think he's Santa Claus, do you?
I didn't say that. I meant from a purely philosophical point of view, that he could be Santa.
So you think he is Santa, philosophically speaking, of course.
It's like one of those ideas that go round and round in your head, like, is Snow white, or is red red, or when a tree falls in a forest, does it make a sound?
Of course it does.
Does it? Because it would if you were standing there and the vibrations would bounce off of your eardrums. But what if there were no eardrums in the vicinity?
I've heard that argument before, and it can never be proven.
Or disproven. It's all in your perception. If millions of children didn't believe in Santa, then he wouldn't exist. I mean, Kris certainly believes that he is.
He surely does.
We might say it's a case of I think, therefore I am.
Unfortunately, we have to be realistic in a retail business.
I understand. But I must assure you, he is perfectly harmless. There are thousands of people leading quite similar lives under similar delusions.
I'm really glad you said delusions.
As I said, I've known him for, years. His delusions are a positive one. He just wants to spread Christmas spirit and happiness to everyone. I just worry about him sometimes.
Why?
Maplewood has discharged him, and I'd hate to see him walking around the New York streets alone. If only someone could watch him, after hours, of course, in the store.
You mean Chris has no place to stay?
He doesn't.
All right, I'll see what I can do. Thank you so much. I feel much more at ease after your insights.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. I know you won't regret him having on your staff. Have a Merry Christmas.
You too.
Mr. Kringle, is it?
Yes, that is one of the names I've been called.
I'm Albert Sawyer, Macy's vocational guidance counselor.
How do you do?
That remains to be seen. Mr. Kringle, before the customers start coming in, I would like to get, a little acquainted with you a little. As you are a new employee, store policy requires that I ask you some questions. Have you enjoyed your work here so far?
I'd hardly call it work. I normally do this sort of thing for free.
So, you normally promise gifts to children around Christmas time?
I do my best.
How do you presume to provide all these gifts yourself?
Santa Claus has a lot of ways in making things happen.
Mm-hmm. And so, sometimes you go back to the North Pole at night to manufacture these gifts yourself, right?
Actually, no. I live with my reindeer.
Excuse me?
I'm temporarily staying at the home of the zookeeper. I help him look after the reindeer and make sure that they're all right.
Oh. Well, let's move on. Now, Mr. Kringle, can you tell me what 3 times 5 is?
Don't you know?
I want you to tell me.
15, of course.
Good. Thank you. Now, I would like you to
stand up and touch my nose, alternating between index fingers. I also know this one. Do you know any new ones I haven't heard before?
Who was the first president of the United States?
George Washington. And do you know who the vice president was under Grover Cleveland?
I have no idea. Mr. Kringle, I'm giving this interview if you don't mind. Now, are you married?
Is that a proposal?
How many fingers am I holding up?
3. My, I see you bite your nails. Do these interviews make you nervous?
That's none of your business. Now, what's 3 times 5?
15, the same as you asked the first time. Do you know that unconscious repetition is often a sign of overwork and stress? Are you getting enough rest, Mr. Sawyer?
That'll be all, Mr. Kringle.
You could use a nice vacation. I could talk to Mrs. Macy for you.
That man, he definitely has rampant psychosis.
Who?
That Santa, that Kris Kringle.
Oh, come on, Sawyer. I just got done talking to his doctor, and she assured me that Chris was perfectly harmless.
Perfectly harmless? I mean, cases like this often get violent when their delusions are attacked. If that man is allowed to continue to work here, I will take no responsibility for the consequences.
That's all right. I will take the responsibility. Don't you worry about it.
If I'm the psychologist around here, I think my opinion should be respected. I'm telling you, Mrs. Walker, that if something happens and that man becomes violent, well, I'll be the first to say, I told you so!
Oh, good heavens, what was that all about? Sawyer just did a psychological evaluation on our Santa Claus and apparently didn't get anywhere. His opinions are that Chris could become violent.
Well, that would be a disaster.
But I just got done talking to Dr. Pierce at the Maplewood Homes where Chris has been staying, and she assured me that Chris was just a jolly old man and wouldn't hurt anybody. She's just worried about him after the store closes.
Well, do you believe the doctor?
I mean, she said she's known him for years, so we only talked to him for 10 minutes.
Well, why did the doctor seek you out?
She seems very fond of Chris and is rather protective of him. She just wants someone to look out for him.
Well, I think that's a splendid idea, and you're just the person to do it.
What are you suggesting? Not him staying with me? No way. I have enough responsibility with Susan, and I need time at night to unwind.
Well, I have a spare room. Chris could stay with us.
You're a jewel, Shelley. I knew I could count on you.
Not so fast. I'll have to talk to my husband first. It's his home, too. I'll tell you what. You invite Chris over for dinner tonight, and that will give me time to talk to Albert. I'll explain that as a part of our Christmas spirit, we should invite this nice and friendly old man as a temporary house guest. I don't think I'll mention he believes he's Santa Claus.
What'll Albert think when he's introduced to Kris Kringle?
I'll have to think of a way around that one.
All right, Shelley. I appreciate it. I'll call you later.
I enjoyed dinner very much, and I thought the milk and cookies was a nice exception. I also enjoyed spending the evening with you and Susan.
Mr. Kringle, could you tell me another story about your reindeer?
Susan, I think Mr. Kringle's tired.
Not at all. I'd love to talk to her. Susan, come here, dear.
Give me just 1 second. I need to make a phone call.
Do you have a lot of friends in the building, Susan?
Yes, but I don't see them very much. The games they play are so childish. Today they were being animals, and they asked what kind of animal I wanted to be, but I didn't want to be an animal. It's so dumb.
Why didn't you tell them that you were a lion or a bear?
Because I'm not a lion, I'm a girl.
Susan, the other children aren't animals either. They were just pretending.
That's what makes the game so silly.
Do you know what imagination is, Susan?
That's when you see things that aren't really there.
Yes, but imagination is a place you can go to, a very wonderful country. You know, nations like England and Russia and Japan. Imagination is a place like that, and once you get there, you can do anything you want.
Not anything.
For instance, how would you like to fly to Mars and be back by dinner time?
Oh, that wouldn't be possible.
Or go to the Statue of Liberty and fly south with a flock of geese in the afternoon? It's simple. Would you like to give it a try?
Well, I guess I could try.
Okay, let's start with something easy. How would you like to be a bird flying in the sky?
I wouldn't know how to do that, Mr. Kringle.
Sure you would. Now stand up. That's it. Spread your arms out. Tilt sideways and turn. Flip your arms up and down. That's it. Now you're soaring like a bird.
I did it, Mr. Kringle. That was fun.
Now, Susan, if you were to believe that I was actually Santa Claus, what would you ask me to bring you for Christmas?
Can you bring big presents?
Since we're in the land of imagination, they can be any size.
I want a real house for Mother and me, and a real father to live in it with us.
You're right. That is a tall order indeed.
Well, if you're really Santa, you can do it. And if you can't, then you're just a nice man with a white beard, like Mother said.
Susan, not every child always gets their wish. That doesn't mean there isn't a Santa Claus. Some children wish for things they can never use, like a real locomotive, for example. And some children wish for baby brothers or sisters, even though their parents wouldn't be able to care for them properly. That doesn't. Sometimes a child has to wish something before Santa can grant that wish.
But I've wished for a father and a house for such a long time, Mr. Kringle.
I know. And the more you wish for it, the more it will mean to you when it comes. If a child's wish came true right away, life wouldn't be half as much fun. So you see, Susan, there are a lot of reasons why a child's wish can't always come true.
A father and a house are really all I want, not toys.
Oh, hi there, Susan. How's my favorite little girl? Oh, hi, I'm Fred Gailey. I live in the next apartment.
Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Gailey. I'm Chris Kringle.
Yes, I know.
Susan, it's time for... Oh, hi, Fred. Have you two met?
Yes. We just introduced ourselves.
Mr. Kringle, I found a place for you to stay tonight. Oh, there's my phone. I'll be back in just a moment.
You're looking for a place to stay?
No, I'm staying at the zoo.
I've never met anyone who lived at the zoo before.
The zoo is no place to stay. Why don't you stay with me? I've got an extra bed in my apartment, and I could use some company.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gailey. Susan, why don't you go tell your mother that we've made an arrangement? I don't want her to worry about me.
Okay, Mr. Kringle. And I like the idea of your staying with Fred. He's my friend, and it's right next door.
Good night, Susan.
Good night. I like the idea too, Mr. Gailey.
Oh, call me Fred, please.
All right, Fred. Living nearby will give me more time to work on Susan's Christmas gift.
I'm really very fond of that little girl.
I can see that. And how about her mother?
Well, I really like her, but I'm afraid that being neighbors and a babysitter with Susan is as close as she wants me to get.
Have you ever tried inviting her out?
I've tried, but Doris won't really socialize since her divorce. She just focuses on her career and Susan. I don't think she trusts love anymore.
An old, sad story. But maybe that's something we can do something about, Fred.
Oh, yeah? Well, where do we start?
It's simple. Just keep showing your interest in her and be aware of her feelings. But most of all, you must have faith in her.
I've tried all that. It hasn't done me much good so far.
Everything will work out. I'll see to that.
Mr. Kringle, Miss Shellhammer has offered a place for you to stay tonight, and it's right next to the store so you can get to work easily. Is that all right? I can go and call a cab, and you can go right now.
That's very thoughtful of her, but I just accepted Mr. Gailey's offer to stay with him.
Mr. Gailey? I see.
I hope you don't mind. Well, I have to be getting my things from the zoo. I'll be back soon.
Wait, I'll go call you a cab.
Don't bother. There'll be one right outside. Thank you.
I should tell you about him, Fred. I don't suppose you know he's been diagnosed as suffering from delusions. Chris's doctor has asked me to keep an eye out on him. He should not be left unsupervised.
Aside from the fact that I think he's quite capable of handling himself, he'll only be next door. But between the two of us, I'm sure we'll have the situation covered.
That's not quite at all.
Oh.
The Santa Claus bit. I thought I made that clear to you. I don't want Susan influenced.
I understand your concerns, Doris, but I like Chris. Why not try it out for a couple of days, and if the arrangement doesn't work, we'll find another place for him. In the meantime, I'll take responsibility for him. Trust me, Doris. Deal?
Okay.
Down through the chimney with lots of toys, all for the little ones' Christmas joys. Ho, ho, ho! Who wouldn't go? Ho, ho, ho! Who wouldn't go? Up on the housetop, click, click, click. Down through the chimney with good Saint Nick. Comes the knocking of little Elle. For Santa fill it well. Here's her eyes.
Hi, is everything
Did
all right?
Chris come back here?
No, wasn't he with you?
I went to the zoo to find him, and when I got there, the man said he had left and got his things over an hour ago.
Oh, heavens, Fred, something's happened to him.
It's all my fault, and after I told you could trust me,
I don't want to blame you.
I shouldn't have let him go get his things by himself.
The important thing now is to find out if he's all right. I'd never forgive myself if something happened to him.
I'm surprised. I didn't think you liked Chris.
Not a matter of like.
I thought that this was maybe a sign that what Chris stood for was getting to you.
No, but this is New York City, you know.
Come on, Doris. Who's going to mug Santa Claus?
I'm calling the police.
Look, Doris, if Chris can get here from the North Pole, then I'm sure New York City won't be a problem.
If he
for
was
him.
all right, he would have called. He must have known I would have been worried. What's wrong, Susan?
I dreamed that Mr. Crinkle went away and there wasn't any more Christmas.
Susan, you know that dreams aren't real.
It was only a dream, Susan. Chris will be all right. And we'll never lose Christmas as long as we have each other.
Don't know what I would have done without you tonight, Fred. I don't think I've ever shown my appreciation for you or the way you take care of Susan. Please forgive me for getting so upset.
Thank you. Thank you for opening up to me. Thank you for realizing that I'm right here with you.
It's beginning to look. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll come back in a more convenient.
Chris, you're back!
Chris, where have you been? We've been very worried.
I was just out caroling with some of my friends. I just came by to say goodnight.
I'm so relieved.
So my dream was true. Santa really did go away.
But he came back because your mother cared about him.
That's a nice thought, anyway. Everything's all right now. Susan, come on. Let's go to bed.
Good night again, Susan.
Did you enjoy my absence?
What do you mean, did I enjoy your absence? Doris was nearly crazed with worry.
Didn't it bring the two of you closer together?
Well, yes.
That's exactly what I hoped would happen.
Oh, you old fox. You worried us on purpose. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Not at all. Now let me get out of here so you can finish putting her worries to rest.
Here, it's the key to the next apartment on the right. And I'm really glad you're staying with me, Chris. However, I must confess, I do have an ulterior motive.
Oh, what's that?
I'm going to find out the answer to the question that has plagued this world for centuries. Does Santa sleep with his whiskers inside or outside of the covers?
I always sleep with them out. Cold air helps them grow. I'll find my way, thank you.
I'm glad he's staying at your place. I feel better with him safe in here, and I'm glad you're in here too.
Me too.
in the crystal that shoots the wish that Barney in vain. Dolls are talking, will go for a walk is the hope of Janice and Jane. And Mom and Dad can hardly wait for school to start again. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Everywhere you go, there's a tree in the Grand Hotel, one in the park as well, the sturdy kind that doesn't mind the snow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Soon the bells will start, and the thing that will make them ring is the carol that you sing right within your heart.
Well, instead of just standing there, you can go fix the snow. You can do something. I don't know, Fred. I don't know.
Do you want me to go look for him?
Now's the perfect time for you to
I'll
play
go.
Santa
I got you, I got
Claus.
you.
Yeah.
But I'm
Maybe
not dressed
not.
in red. I don't know how to play Santa Claus. Doris, that wasn't in the training. I don't know how to play Santa Claus.
It's okay. We'll figure this out.
I don't know where he's at.
Doris. Doris.
Our
are we going to be
decorations
fired?
just look beautiful this year.
No,
I'll go
they
look
don't,
again.
because
I'll go
that's
look
not
again.
the
It's
color
okay.
red that was on the form. This is not correct.
Chris.
You did it. I know it was you.
Chris.
Where is our Santa? Mrs. Macy, I promise this will not happen again.
He's right
And
around the
Mr.
corner.
Bloomingdale-
He's on his way.
This is not our usual. You're usually right on time as home, Mr. Kringle. And now, a very special honor, Mrs. Macy and Mr. Bloomingdale.
Welcome to our store. I'm so happy we can work together in the spirit of Christmas.
Yes, I admit I was at first very jealous of the popularity of your Goodwill campaign. I felt as though you were stealing Christmas from us. But then I realized that Goodwill isn't any company's property. So we started our own Goodwill campaign, and I must say it has been quite successful for us.
That's right. Goodwill goes a lot farther with everybody than competition. Now, would you please come forward, Mr. Kringle? This was the man I told you about. Mr. Kringle, you have brought a very special spirit to both Macy's and Bloomingdale's stores this Christmas season, and it seems to have spread to the entire city of New York as well. Whatever your special gift is, it deserves recognition and appreciation. So, in honor of your distinguished service, Macy's would like to present you with this token of our esteem and gratitude.
Thank you very much. This is going to go to someone very special this Christmas season. It's going to buy an X-ray machine.
Oh, what?
It's for the medical facility at Maplewood Home. Dr. Pierce says an X-ray machine is very helpful in some situations.
That's going to be quite expensive. That check won't.
We'll cover it for you wholesale.
Oh, we'll get it for you at cost.
Thank you both very much.
Will you folks, and you too, Miss Macy, and Mr. Kringle, will you take some pictures in front of my store? And since you brought so much business to Bloomingdale's, there will be a different, bigger check waiting for you to cover the cost of that expensive machine.
Pinch me, Fred. I never thought I'd see Miss Macy shaking hands with Mr. Bloomingdale.
I don't know how he does it.
Who?
Chris.
Maybe he gathered some stardust while soaring through the air on his reindeer and sprinkled it on everybody.
Doris, your imagination's coming to life.
Not really, Fred. I was only joking.
No, you weren't. You don't got to be afraid to admit it. I have a little presentation of my own.
What is it? Fred, it's beautiful.
Here, let me put this on you. You know, I went to Cartier's to look at the necklace collection, and they asked me if I'd seen the collection at Tiffany's. And then I go to Tiffany's, and once I get there, the clerk asked me if I'd seen the collection at Cartier's.
It's happening all over town. I never thought when I met that jolly bearded man at the parade that he'd revolutionize the entire merchandising business.
Why don't we celebrate and have dinner together?
I'd really love to, but I have to work.
Seriously?
Yeah, Sawyer, our vocational guidance counselor, is giving a lecture tonight for all our employees.
Well, can't you get out of it?
No, sorry. I have to introduce him.
Well, what's the topic?
Please don't tell Chris.
Open discussion, exploding the myth of Santa Claus. Open discussion following lecture. Oh dear, we'll have to show this to Mr. Kringle.
And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Albert Sawyer.
Ladies, tonight we are here to explore the myth of Santa Claus. Now, by the time this lecture is concluded, I feel confident you will share my heartfelt convictions that this legend, which has been passed down over the centuries, is an outrageous atrocity, in that it has been detrimental to generation after generation of innocent young children of all genders. Now, the symbolic figure of Santa Claus or St. Nicholas or Kris Kringle represents the classic expression of the wishful dreaming of all children. Now, instead of teaching our children that things they want come for free, they should be taught, while still in their formative years, the value of the work ethic that has made this country great. They must learn that this is a hard and competitive world, and if they are to succeed, they must know the difference between fact and fiction. Now, mature adults who continue to perpetuate this myth often reveal themselves as incomplete and neurotic personalities who have failed to adjust to the stringent demands of our culture. Not only have they damaged their own existence, but they are harming their children's future. A child who does not understand the marked difference between fact and fiction will grow up still clinging to infantile fantasies and will never be able to face the cruel truths of today's world. Now, why do we do this to ourselves, you may ask?
Don't ask.
To compensate for feelings of guilt. That's why we perpetuate the myth of Santa Claus. Parents who feel guilty because they've neglected their child 364 days of the year and picked this one day to swamp the child with gifts are doing it as so to purge their own shameful behavior. And parents and grandparents who swamp the child with talk of Santa and stage the Christmas charade are doing it to reenact their own infantile emotions, which they have never outgrown. Thus, I suspect the vaunted spirit of giving is selfishness in disguise. Far from doing any good in the world, this myth has done more harm than
Just a minute there.
I'm giving this lecture, Mr. Kringle.
An open discussion was to be included, I believe.
The discussion will take place after the lecture is concluded.
The lecture is
over.
over.
We don't want to hear this. Mrs. Walker, I refuse to continue.
Yeah.
Until this blatant fraud is removed from the platform.
Chris, please, we have to.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Walker, but I can't just stand here. Listen to this depressing absurdity of this man's propaganda.
Absurdity, huh?
Fraud.
Don't you threaten me. Mrs. Walker, I told you he would get violent. Stop! Ow! Ow! Oh! 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 See, he hit me!
Okay, let's calm down
no
here.
such
Albert,
thing.
Chris!
Are you going to let this dangerous maniac assault one of your employees?
He's perfectly harmless,
Maybe
Mr.
we should
Sawyer.
let the police decide that.
And that concludes this evening's lecture, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming out. Now, Merry Christmas and goodbye. I'll handle this.
I'm perfectly capable of defending myself against...
Please, Chris, for my sake.
All right. I'll see you at the store tomorrow.
No. Will you wait out in the hallway while I talk to Sawyer?
Society has ways with dealing with your kind. That's what I mean. He's a dangerously deranged man. In cases like this, there's no warning. He could strike at any time.
I hardly think that...
Doris, if Bloomingdale's or the press were to find out that our Santa is potentially dangerous, that the repercussions would be devastating.
I'm telling you, Mrs. Walker, Kringle is a stick of dynamite with a short fuse. I warned you, and thank goodness I was the victim of his lunacy instead of some poor, defenseless child dangling on his knee.
He's perfectly harmless, Mr. Sawyer. Are you sure he touched you with that
Yes,
cane?
and he will again. He has evidently suffered a sudden change of personality and has entered a violent stage.
But Dr. Pierce assured me that Chris's delusions were a positive one and that he wouldn't hurt anybody.
Dr. Pierce is not a psychiatrist.
And neither are you.
In that case, your job is to have him thoroughly examined by a competent psychiatrist at once.
I agree.
I don't. Chris has been examined many times according to Dr. Pierce.
Then one more time won't make the difference. If Chris is found competent, he can come right back and resume his job.
And if he doesn't, well, then you will have certainly done the right thing. The only problem now is to get him out of here without causing another scene. In his present condition, he would most certainly react with violence.
You should explain this to him, Doris. He trusts you.
I can't hurt the old man.
Well, never mind, Mrs. Walker. I won't need you. I know what to do.
What are you going to do?
I'll apologize. And then I'll invite him for dinner. And I'll convince him to have an examination by a psychiatrist tomorrow.
All right, Sawyer. Call me later, let me know how it goes, okay?
Mr. Kringle, are you still there? Please, 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 come back. I'm sorry about our misunderstanding. I shouldn't have said the things I did. Are you okay? Would you like to come have dinner with me? Then I'd be happy to take you back to where you were staying.
I accept your apology, Mr. Sawyer, and thank you for the invitation, but I think I'll go with Mrs. Walker.
That's all right, Chris. I'll go with Miss Shellhammer, and it'll give me some time to do some last-minute shopping. I'll see you in the morning.
Shall we go?
Would you excuse me a moment? I need to speak to the elves.
Of course. I'll just go grab my things.
I've been thinking. Do you know how I always say that you have to look for the good in everyone, no matter how bad that person seems to be?
Does everyone include Mr. Sawyer?
Sometimes the good in everyone
Yeah.
is buried so deep down that it has a hard time getting out. And once it reaches the surface, we have a hard time seeing it because we've blocked it off for so long. Mr. Sawyer sees things very limited because he has a very limited view.
But is there hope for him?
Of course there is. He just apologized for his angry words. I don't know if he was sincere, but he knows deep down that he should mean them.
But what if he wasn't being honest?
That would mean, at the time, the bad was stronger than the good.
You shouldn't go with him, Mr. Kringle.
Not so fast. We must be quick to see the good intentions in his words. Even though this situation was harsh, he knows that he must be nice to everyone, no matter who they are.
I'm calling for a vote of the elves on whether Mr. Kringle should go with Mr. Sawyer. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
Not so fast. I'm in charge of myself, so the ayes have it in this one. I'm going to give Mr. Sawyer a chance, and even Mrs. Walker said that I should go with him. So you elves go on home, and I'll see you at the store tomorrow.
If you say so, sir, but please be careful.
Mr. Sawyer, where shall we go have dinner? How could she have done this? How could she have done this to me?
Doris didn't send you here. She thought Sawyer was taking you to dinner.
She must have been hearing me all along.
How
I
did
thought
it,
she was beginning to believe in me.
how did it happen that you ended up going with him to Bellevue?
He tricked me. Sawyer kept looking out the restaurant window as we made small talk. Then suddenly he said, "Let's go." When we got outside, he pushed me into a waiting taxi and two men put me in between them. Then I heard one of them say Bellevue. Sawyer didn't even come along.
Well, didn't they give you the usual sanity test that you know by heart?
The same routine. But I was so crushed that Doris would do something like this to me that I deliberately gave them all the wrong answers. So they committed me.
Doris didn't send you here. She only agreed that Sawyer would take you to dinner and talk with you about seeing a psychiatrist.
I'm relieved to know that. But why didn't she come to me herself and explain?
She was afraid of hurting you, Chris.
Well, it hurt anyway. I'm just a nice old man she felt sorry for.
She feels more than that, I'm sure of it, Chris.
No. She had doubts, Fred. And that's why she isn't here. If you had been dragged off here, she would have been here in a heartbeat.
She certainly had doubts at first, Chris, but she was really beginning to open up and believe. I think her belief was still too new and fragile, and Sawyer may have tipped her the other way. But look, Chris, I'm sure Doris wouldn't want you to stay here.
It's not just Doris. It's people like Sawyer. He's so dishonest and, oh, I don't want to say the other awful words that occur to me. Yet he's the one they call normal. And if that's how sane people behave, then I'd rather just stay here with the more honest folks.
Nonsense, Chris. You're quite sane. And a whole lot saner than most.
Yet he's out there, and I'm in here. I should have listened to the elves. I thought there was some good in that man that I could touch. And now I'm sitting here stuck in Mount Hope after all, the way Dr. Pierce said.
Chris, you gotta stop being so gloomy. You're not living up to your own philosophy. You can't just think of yourself.
Am I just thinking of myself?
What happens to you matters to a whole lot of people, Chris. People like me who have faith in you and what you stand for, and people like Susan who are just beginning to learn about faith.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right at that. I should be ashamed of myself, but by golly, I am. Come on, Fred, let's get out of here.
Wait a minute there, Chris. It's not that easy. There's still some legal matters that I'm not sure we'll be able to overcome, and I don't know how we'll be able to get you out of here.
You tell me not to be discouraged. Now you don't be discouraged. I've got faith in you, Fred, and I know you'll be able to do it.
Really? Then I'll do it. I'll get you out of here, Chris.
Good morning, Your Honor. It has been a good year for you, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. I see no reason why the spring election won't fall into my lap. Perhaps my Christmas present ought to be more elaborate this year. Maybe that trip to Bermuda.
That ought to be real nice, ma'am. Miss Morrow from the Attorney General office would like to speak to you.
Good, show her in.
Just some routine commitment papers, Your Honor. You'll find everything's in order. I've checked it over carefully, and the Bellevue psychiatric report is attached at the back.
Bellevue, huh? Age unknown. An old man, huh?
Very old, Your Honor.
I suppose I should read all this.
You can take my word for it. It's a clear-cut consent case proceeding. The fellow calls himself Kris Kringle. He thinks he's Santa Claus.
Uh-oh.
Truly.
Oh, my goodness.
Just look, he's a mess.
People these days.
Somebody wants to talk to you.
What does he want?
Something about the Kris Kringle case.
Better show him in.
All right.
Santa Claus has a lawyer?
Just apparently.
Who knows?
Right this way, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Fred Gailey. I'm representing Kris Kringle. I believe you've received the papers.
Yes, just a matter of signing the consent, it seems. That'll get the old fellow of harm's way for what's left of his life.
No, if you don't mind, Your Honor, there are indications that Mr. Kringle has been victimized, and I have requested a proper hearing so that I can provide witnesses.
I thought you said this case was clear-cut.
It was, as far as I knew. This is the first I've heard about a challenge.
The psychiatric evaluation, Mr. Gailey, there's a clear Clear report. It says that in his delusions, he became violent. That seems like a pretty clear basis for commitment, don't you think?
That is a misrepresentation, Your Honor. That's why I've requested a hearing.
I'm thinking about court time and expense to the taxpayers, Mr. Gailey.
You may sign the commitment papers if you wish, Your Honor, but I must advise you, I will submit a writ of habeas corpus.
There's no need for all of that. We might as well have a competency hearing. Let's see. Next Monday morning, 10 a.m. Is that okay with you?
Fine, and thank you, Your Honor.
Miss Mara?
Just when I thought I was getting my calendars cleared for Christmas vacation. I'll work it in.
See you on Monday, then.
See you on Monday. Good evening, Finley.
Good evening, Miss Mara.
Whom do I see about the Kringle commitment case?
Kringle's case has been challenged, Mr.
Sawyer.
Yes, nice to meet you. His certifications of insanity are certainly unequivocal, but wouldn't you know, even Bellevue's word isn't good enough.
I'd like this case to be dropped immediately. Isn't there anything we can do?
Unfortunately, no. The case is already set for Monday morning at 10 a.m.
Public hearing? Attorneys? Miss Macy demanded that I get Santa back. Isn't there anything we can do?
Oh, there's no need to worry. This kid, what's his name? Gailey? He's just a young lawyer trying to make a big publicity stunt out of it all.
Publicity? My job? Gone!
You'll be fine.
No Christmas bonus. Maybe Mrs. Walker will know what to do.
Good evening, folks. This is Sydney Stewart on your New York news station, WZYX. Today's top story from New York City is the controversial sanity hearing of, you won't believe this, Kris Kringle, also known as, you guessed it, Santa Claus. It seems as if Macy's St. Nick says he is the real Santa Claus, and the state of New York wants to put him away for saying so. This could result in a lot of disappointed children and empty stockings on Christmas morning. We'll keep you informed on what happens to Santa in the New York judicial system as the hearing progresses.
Hello, Finley. Is it judging? Hello, Harley. How are you? Harley, you know, I've been a pretty good friend of yours for years, as well as your political manager. And I believe we've been pretty successful in keeping you on this bench, haven't we?
Yes, of course, Charlie. I'm very grateful to you. I like my seat and hope to keep it for a while.
All right, and we've got elections coming up in the spring, right?
Yes, Charlie. Is there any problem?
Harley, I've been reading the newspaper recently, and seriously, are you going to have Santa Claus in your courtroom?
Is there something you want me to get him for Christmas?
No, Harley. I'd like to offer you a gift. How about a trip now? Take Madeline, escape to Bermuda as you've been talking about.
I'd like to, but I'm afraid I won't be away very soon. My calendar's too full.
No, I mean right away. You're looking a little run down to me, Harley. You ought to take a few weeks off.
Nonsense. I've never felt better in my life.
Go fishing, go hiking, go anywhere.
Why should I?
Because, Harley, this Santa Claus case is explosive. You've got to find a way to get out of it somehow.
I can't just walk it on a case. It's all arranged.
Then have a sudden illness. Let another judge handle this, somebody who's not up for re-election right away.
Hey, Charlie, relax. I'm an honest woman. I wouldn't fake an illness. Besides, maybe the Santa Claus case would be some good publicity for my campaign.
Good publicity? You would become a regular Pontius Pilate before you even start the campaign. You would become a villain to every little kid who believes in Santa Claus.
They don't vote.
But their parents do. Any father or mother who has explained to the kid why Santa Claus went to jail is gonna hate you.
Not jail, state hospital.
Same thing! Wake up, Harley.
Did you see this thing about trying Santa Claus for sanity?
I saw. The guy's gotta be crazy, don't you think?
When was that? I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah, the guy calls himself Kris Kringle. Gotta be nuts.
Well, I don't know. Why shouldn't there be a real Santa Claus? I think it's a nice idea.
Even if he isn't real, I just hope they don't put the old guy away. He's not harmed anybody.
Hear ye, all rise. The Honorable Harley X. Harper is now presiding.
Please be seated. Let us proceed.
As the competency report has already been submitted in evidence, Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call forth its first witness, Mr. Kris Kringle.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Kris Kringle.
And where do you live?
That's what this hearing would decide, I believe.
A very sound answer, Mr. Kringle.
Do you or do you not believe that you are Santa Claus?
Of course.
The state rests its case, Your Honor.
Well, young man, do you still wish to enter into defense? I believe this man was hired to play Santa Claus. Perhaps he didn't understand the question.
I understood the question perfectly, Your Honor.
Do you still wish him to enter defense, young man?
I do, Your Honor. I am fully aware that Mr. Kringle believes himself to be Santa Claus. In fact, that is the basis of this entire case against him. The state claims that this man is not sane simply because he believes that he is Santa Claus.
That seems like a reasonable and logical premise for such a declaration, Mr. Gailey.
It would be, Your Honor, if you or I or Miss Mara here believed that we were Santa Claus.
Anyone who thinks that he is Santa Claus is out of touch with reality. Of course he's insane.
Not necessarily. Your Honor, you believe yourself to be Judge Harper, and nobody questions your sanity because you are Judge Harper.
I know all about myself, young man. Mr. Kringle's the subject of this case.
I was only making a point, Your Honor.
And your point is?
I wish to clarify that if a person is the person he claims himself to be, he is just as sane.
Of course, but he isn't.
No, but he is, Your Honor.
Is what?
I intend to prove that Mr. Kringle is Santa Claus.
Ho, ho, ho!
This hearing stands adjourned until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
I read the evening paper, Fred, and I'm worried. You seem to be fighting such a hopeless battle.
Actually, I'm rather confident. The public sympathy's obviously behind Chris, and it seems to be going really well for us. I think we have a good chance.
What does your law firm think about you taking this on?
Well, actually, Ode Hayslip, the senior partner, called me into his office this afternoon.
We are an old, established firm with great prestige and dignity, Mr. Gailey. We can't have one of our junior members making a complete spectacle of himself. We are not in business to prove that some old crank is actually Santa Claus.
In other words, unless I drop the case, they'll drop me.
So you'll have to drop the case, won't you?
Well, I can't let a client down. You wouldn't want me to walk out on Chris, would you?
Fred, I care very deeply for you, and I admire your strength in taking this on, but I don't want to see you losing your position.
It's true. I might.
That would be irresponsible. People have to be realistic. I've certainly learned that. You can't give up your job for some sentimental whim.
It's more than a whim, Doris.
Stop dreaming, Fred.
There's something very beautiful about that old man, and very compelling, too. Representing Chris is the right thing to do, and I won't let him down. And I'm a damned good lawyer, too, Doris. Come on, have some faith in me.
It's more than a matter of faith, Fred. You're bound to lose this case. That's just common sense.
Doris, faith is believing in something when common sense tells you not to. Your problem is that you have too much common sense.
Well, it's a good thing one of us has. It's quite an asset sometimes.
Can't you get over being afraid? Just let yourself believe in people. People like Chris, and in laughter, and joy, and love, and all of the other intangibles.
You can't pay rent with intangibles.
And you can't live a life without them. Or at least I can't. You know, I thought Chris and I had broken through your armor, Doris. I thought you'd start being more open-minded and open-hearted. Well, there's no use talking. It doesn't seem we have many thoughts or feelings in common anyways.
I suppose not.
And there's nothing left to say.
You know it's ironic. With all my common sense, I really thought it was going to work out this time.
Oh, well, so did I.
Goodbye, Fred.
As my first witness, I would like to call R.H. Macy to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Miss Macy, you're the owner of one of the largest department stores in New York City, is that right?
Yes, and 51 nationwide.
Right. And is Mr. Kringle here one of your employees?
Yes.
Do you believe him to be sane?
Definitely.
Do you believe him to be truthful?
Remember, you were under oath, Mrs. Macy.
Miss Mara, you will have a chance to cross-examine the witness after Gailey's finished.
Your Honor, I can ask Miss Mara's question for her. Do you believe Mr. Kringle to be Santa Claus?
Yes.
No further questions.
Miss Mara, do you wish to? You may sit down.
As my next witness, I would like to call Dr. Pierce to the stand.
Right this way, ma'am. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Dr. Pierce, you're the resident physician at the Maplewood home, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've known Mr. Kringle for quite some time. Do you believe him to be Santa Claus?
Yes.
Would you say that a little bit louder? I would like the court to hear you loud and clear.
Yes, I do.
Doctor, you are a woman of science, are you not? Have you any rational scientific reasons for your opinion?
Miss Mara, I must caution you again. You will have a chance to speak with the witness after Gailey's finished.
Yes, Your Honor.
Dr. Pierce, did you submit a Christmas wish to Mr. Kringle a few weeks ago?
Yes.
And what exactly was that wish?
Maplewood Medical Facility needed a new x-ray machine.
And what's arrived at the Maplewood home yesterday morning?
An x-ray machine.
And who was it addressed from?
The card said, "Merry Christmas from Kris Kringle."
Thank you, Doctor. Your witness.
Right. Now, Dr. Pierce, plenty of people receive presents around the time of Christmas marked as from Kris Kringle or from Santa Claus. Can you think of any other possible donors?
No.
Now, be careful, Dr. Pierce. This is a court of law where only logical facts and reasonable pieces of testimony can be used as evidence. Now, please tell the court why you are so sure that a man who works only a temporary job at a Christmas department store can afford such an expensive piece of medical equipment.
Because he's the only one to whom I've expressed this wish to. And when I said it, I said, "If I get this x-ray machine, I'll know you're Santa." And I did. And he is.
Thank you. You may sit down.
As my next witness, I would like to call Jim Duncan to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Duncan, you're the zookeeper at the Central Park Zoo, is that right?
Yes, I am.
Jim, would you tell us about Mr. Kringle?
Kris has a wonderful way with the reindeer. It's uncanny. I'm the antelope man at the zoo. Have been for years, but I've always had difficulty with reindeer. The only time I can get them is when they're restrained. Yet these same reindeer will walk right up to Mr. Kringle and eat out of his hand.
Objection! This is irrelevant and immaterial, not to mention ridiculous. Mr. Gately is making a circus out of this proceeding. Do you plan to have a reindeer testify too, for heaven's sake? There's no such person as Santa Claus, and everybody here knows it.
Hey! Order in the court! Order in the court! Order!
Your Honor, may I ask Miss Mara a question? Not only have all of these witnesses testified that there is a Santa Claus, but that he is sitting right here in this courtroom. Can you offer any positive proof that there is no Santa Claus?
Well, no, of course I can't. And I don't intend to try. This isn't a nursery. This is a New York State court, and we are wasting the court's time with this childish nonsense. Your Honor, is there or is there not a Santa Claus? I'm asking for your immediate ruling.
The court will take a short recess to consider the matter. All rise!
Look here, Harley. I don't care what you decide about old Whiskapus out there. But if you officially rule that there is no Santa Claus, you might as well start looking for the chicken ranch somewhere. We won't even be able to put your name in the primaries.
I'm a sane person and an honorable official. How can I say that there is a Santa Claus, Charlie? If they do, they'll have me derobed and try me for insanity.
Listen, Harley, do you understand how many millions of dollars worth of toys are produced each year? Toys that wouldn't be sold if it weren't for Santa Claus. Have you ever heard of the National Association of Manufacturers? How do you think they would like your ruling? And what about the people they employ to make those toys? Union members. They're going to love you. And they're going to say it with votes. And then there are the department stores, and the candy companies, and the Christmas card artists and printers. And what about the Salvation Army? Why, they've got a Santa Claus on every street corner, and it's their biggest source of income. But I'm telling you, go out there and rule that there is no Santa Claus. But if you do it, you can count on getting just 2 votes. Yours and that lawyer Mara's.
1. Mara's a Republican.
All rise!
Please seat. The opinion of Santa Claus is, by and large, a matter of opinion. Many believe in him. Many others do not. The tradition of the American justice system believes that there should be a biased and unmattered procedure. This court intends to keep an open mind. I will be hearing any evidence from either position.
I have some further evidence, Your Honor. I would like to call Jay Mara to the stand.
Who, me?
Janet. Miss Mara. If we could skip the oath, Your Honor. Now, Janet, do you believe that there's a Santa Claus?
Sure I do. He brought me a doll buggy last year.
And what exactly does he look like, Janet?
He's sitting right over there.
Objection! Overruled.
Tell me, Janet, why are you so sure that there's a Santa Claus?
Because my mommy told me so.
And your mommy's a truthful person. You believe her, right?
Of course. My mommy wouldn't tell me something that wasn't so.
Thank you, Janet. You may go.
And don't forget a real beauty parlor set.
You shall have it, Janet.
The state of New York concedes the existence of Santa Claus. But in doing so, conceding, Your Honor, we ask that Mr. Gailey cease presenting personal opinion as evidence. It is in our best intention to shorten this hearing if possible. So the state the state demands that Mr. Gailey submit authoritative and tangible evidence that this man right here is the one and only Santa Claus.
A point well taken, Miss Mara. I'm afraid I must agree. Please be careful.
My bad.
You all right?
Fine, please continue.
Your Honor, I don't have any authoritative or tangible evidence at this time. May I ask for an adjournment until tomorrow?
This court will stand adjourned until tomorrow afternoon at 3.
All rise!
Janet?
I don't know what we're going to do.
Is Mr. Kringle coming over tonight, Mother?
I'm afraid not, Susan.
He hasn't come for so long.
I don't think Mr. Kringle will ever be able to come back.
Why not?
Well, it's because he says he's Santa Claus.
But he has to be Santa Claus. He's just like everything Santa's supposed to be. Nobody could be Mr. Kringle except Santa Claus.
And I wish you were right, and he's going to be very upset if people tell him he's not.
Then I want to write him a letter to cheer him up. What's his address, Mother?
I'm not sure where he's staying at the moment, but I know if you wrote it to the New York State Courthouse, New York City, he would get it there. Come on, let's go home and I'll help you write it.
Here's a new one. They write to Santa Claus at the North Pole, the South Pole, care of the postmaster, and every other way. But this kid writes to Mr. Kris Kringle, the New York State Court. Special delivery, too.
Yeah, that kid's right. That's where he is. Don't you read the papers?
Sure, I read the papers. The news I want to read. Like the Mets and San Francisco Giants right of the playoffs this year.
Yeah, they got him on trial down there. This Kringle guy, he claims to be Santa Claus, and some DA claims he's nuts.
Wait, you mean there's someone out there who might really be Santa Claus?
Yeah, a lot of people think he is.
Well, what's the matter with you, Lou? You aren't thinking very bright today. This Kringle guy is the solution to our problem.
Jeez, why didn't I think of that?
Order a special big pack. Order a couple of them. Get them down here right away. All this Santa Claus mail we got lying around here.
All right, you got it, Al.
Harley, the publicity on this Kris Kringle hearing has reached massive proportions. They're writing blazing headlines about it.
I know, I've seen the papers too.
So what are you going to do? You have to think of your situation here.
And my duty to my office.
Listen, Harley, today is Christmas Eve. If you officially send Santa Claus to the nut house on Christmas Eve, you're likely to be up for a protest demonstration, or assaulted, or even murdered.
I know. It's desperate. If that young Gailey can ferret out the slightest competent authority reference, then I will willingly and eagerly give him every possible break I can. I've been watching Mr. Kringle very closely. He seems to be nothing more than a kindly old man. But unless some miracle happens, Charlie, I'm afraid I'll have no choice but to accept the report of incompetency and have the old fellow locked away.
Oh, Mother, now that we're here, I'm getting scared. What if Mr. Gailey loses and they send Mr. Kringle away? What if he isn't Santa Claus, just like you said?
Susan, I probably wasn't right when I told you that. We have to have faith in them.
Then you think I'll really get my Christmas wish?
Faith is believing in things when common sense tells you not to. If we don't believe in anything, then we'll never get it. You and I both have to.
I believe. I believe. I believe.
Fred, listen to this. Dear Mr. Kringle, I miss you very much and I hope that you're all right. I believe you really are Santa Claus and I hope you're not sad. Yours truly, Susan Walker. And what's this? I believe in you too, love, Doris. Well, what do you know? Susan, come here, dear.
Mr. Kringle, I believe.
Thank you for your letter, Susan. No matter how this hearing ends, I know my efforts have not been in vain.
It will come out all right. I just know it because I believe in you.
Fred, wait till you see this letter.
Hold on to your hat, Chris. You ain't seen nothing yet.
All rise. Please be seated. Well then, Mr. Gailey, do you have any further evidence you wish to submit?
I do, Your Honor. It concerns the Postal Service, an official agency of the United States government. The Postal Service was created July 26, 1776, by the Second Continental Congress. The first Postmaster General was Benjamin Franklin.
It is indeed gratifying to know about the United States Postal Service, but I hardly see how this has any bearing on our present case.
Begging your pardon, Miss Mora, it has a great deal of bearing. Now, if I may be allowed to continue, Your Honor.
By all means.
I can quote endless details from this volume to verify that the Postal Service is an officially ran governmental organization. Moreover, it became an official branch of the United States government just 22 days after the Declaration of Independence was signed. According to its regulations, positions are governed off civil service procedure. Promotions are based strictly off merit. Furthermore, the Postal Service makes it a criminal offense to deliver mail to the wrong party.
New York State is second to none in its admiration for the Postal Service.
Your Honor, will the court accept the United States Postal Service as a valid source of evidence in this case?
The state does concede that the United States Postal Service is a authoritative organization.
For the record?
For the record. Anything to get on with this case?
In that case, I would like to introduce 3 pieces of evidence, Your Honor. Let these be marked Exhibits A, B, and C. All of these letters are addressed to Santa Claus, USA, in childish handwriting. And they have just now been delivered to Mr. Kris Kringle right here in this courtroom by the United States Postal Service. I submit, Your Honor, that this is positive proof that a valid federal authority recognizes Mr. Kris Kringle as the one and only Santa Claus.
3 letters hardly constitute as positive proof, Mr. Gailey. I understand the Postal Service receives thousands of such letters every year.
I have further evidence, Your Honor, but I must admit I hesitate to produce them.
Well, I'm sure we'd all like to see something.
All right, young man, bring them on. Put them right here on this table.
But, Your Honor...
I said put them right here.
Very well. Every single one of these letters is addressed to Santa Claus, Your Honor.
All right, the United States of America believes that this man is Santa Claus. The court will not dispute it. Case dismissed.
Where's Jaya?
This is the best Christmas I've ever had. It was nice having dinner with Dr. Pierce and Mr. Kringle.
All it needs now to make it perfect is snow.
For the first time, I understand what you mean when you say, faith is believing in things when common sense tells you not to.
Oh, look, it's my house! It's my house!
What does she mean, her house?
I don't know. She's never mentioned anything to me about a house before.
It's a nice-looking house. Would probably be a good real estate investment for someone.
I suppose so.
However, it's way too big for just 2 people. I think it's the perfect size for 3, don't you think? You know, Doris, I've loved you for a very long time, and I've loved Susan even longer. Now, don't you think it's time we...
Yes, Fred.
I think we should get this house for Susan.
For all of us.
Mother, it's got a swing in the backyard, just like my dream, just like my Christmas wish, the one I told Chris about.
Susan, Fred and I have something to tell you.
Hey, you're getting married. I know, because that was a part of my Christmas wish, too.
She's way ahead of us.
And look what I found inside by the fireplace.
Why do they not?